Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? This morning's session will begin in 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The program will begin in 5 minutes. At this time, please move to your seats and help us start on schedule. As a reminder, keep your electronic devices turned on, but set them to silent. This way you can text or email your questions for our guest speakers to the address on the screen, askmetna@gmail.com. AFCEA would like to recognize CompTIA, GIAC, and CertNexus, as well as AFCEA preferred partners, American Public University, Sands Institute, and Western Governors University for helping us bring necessary training sessions and certification opportunities to our members and attendees.
booster flight instrumentation.
Hydrogen burn-off system ignition.
We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff.
ManTech's launch support and mission training teams are an integral part of every launch at Vandenberg Air Force Base and Kennedy Space Center. We provide crucial geospatial analysis and intelligence capabilities across the NGA enterprise and Department of Defense organizations. ManTech is at the forefront of mission training as we work with our customers on all aspects of manned spaceflight. Nearly half of our workforce is comprised of former military, and we're proud to be a major provider of healthcare IT to the Veterans Administration. ManTech is the leading innovator in the field of predictive analytics. We know what to fix before it breaks, and have developed a maintenance strategy that streamlines the supply chain and maximizes the combat capability for the warfighter. With our advanced analytic support to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we help predict who and what will be crossing our borders and when to expect it. ManTech is widely recognized as the expert in advanced cyber. Our advanced offensive cyber capabilities are ever-changing and evolving. ManTech's partnership with the intelligence community provides a unique ability to deter foreign adversaries. Cutting-edge defensive cyber draws from our extensive experience in offensive cyber. The threat is very real, the enemy persistent, and you don't get a second chance. Our federal, civilian, and military training in both our advanced cyber range environment and the persistent cyber training environments help protect our nation through real-world scenarios running real-world live-fire cyber exercises. Drawing on our extensive knowledge of cyber, we're now securing autonomous aircraft control and sensor assemblies on a component and platform level, rendering the systems impervious to outside interference. Making the world ManTech secure.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, we request your attention for a special presentation. Please welcome to the stage Darnell Washington from the National Cryptologic Foundation and Chris Lamb from Secure Experts, as well as Tracy Dade and Jacqueline Wolf.
Good morning, everyone. We only have 3 minutes to do this, so it'll be very quick. Today we have a dedication on behalf of the National Cryptologic Foundation and the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute. We're here to honor the dedication and insight of a truly remarkable man who served the intelligence community. During his tenure with the NSA, Dr. Scott Dade led multiple security teams that were tasked in developing research and targeting multiple levels of certifications for cybersecurity, innovation, and prototyping for next-generation warfighters. Dr. Scott Dade then moved to US Cybercom, where he leveraged rapid integration and innovation processes for prototyping of security systems to import and to affect our dominance over our adversaries. And last year, I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Scott Dade at the AFCEA event, where he saw one of the technologies that Secure Experts had developed and said that he was very interested in moving into the actual prototyping. So he went on to lead the Cyber Mission Force Partnership and act the concept of being able to build a forward deployable portable unit for launching cyber offensive capabilities. We came up with a design that could secure high-value digital assets. And so the National Cryptologic Foundation and the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute have now created a unit which is called the Digital Asset Defense Environment in honor of Dr. Dade. And we would like to celebrate by dedicating this unit for providing cybersecurity and offensive security for today's cyber warfare. I have with me, this is Tracy and Jacqueline, yes. And we would like, this is, of course, Scott Dade's daughter and Tracy Dade, their wife. And we'd like to offer our condolences during his passing last September, which was only 2 weeks after he had looked at the technology and brought it into prototyping at the Maryland Institute. So let's give everyone a hand for their dedication and the honor of this unit. And we want to thank you guys for very much and have a great day. Okay, let's go.
Please welcome to the stage Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, U.S. Army retired, President and CEO of SEA International.
I'll bring it to you guys.
Thank you. Yes.
What an honor, and thank you, family, for being here. We know you sacrificed as well. Congratulations. Okay. Well, I don't know about you guys. I'm wore out after yesterday. That was an action-packed day, great speakers, great discussion, amazing networking, and people just going through and listening to everybody talk about the challenges yesterday that our leadership had put out, and you all down there brainstorming already on how to find solutions to these complex problems. That's what this is all about. So thank you so much. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Pegasystems for sponsoring this morning's coffee. It will be out there during the break, and there'll be plenty of it. So thank you very much, Pegasystems. I would also like to acknowledge the many companies and government organizations that continue to support TechNet Augusta. And the companies that you see on here have been with us every year since we started this in 2013. For 10 years, these companies have been with us and stayed with us. So I am just very humbled and excited. So please join me in thanking them and stop by and see them this afternoon. You can find a recap of everything that happened yesterday, as well as the audio and video tapings that we did for the events, the PowerPoint presentations you saw. The one that's going to come up a little bit late is Mr. Bangs. He wanted to make a couple changes on his slides, but that will be available to you once we get it released. And so if you go to the Signal event coverage page, you can see the link, and it will, where you can access all the material here from the conference. So please, at this time, we're excited about our opening keynote speaker here. He's always entertaining, informative, and has been a great partner of FCA International for years. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Kelly Miller, Executive Director and Defense Agency's Portfolio Manager, ManTech, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And as mentioned, I'm Kelly Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Defense Agency's portfolio here at ManTech International. I'd like to welcome everyone to this very timely topic, building a stronger defense through data. DISA's initiatives for Data-Centric Army at TechNet Augusta. With over 50 years supporting the military, ManTech understands the importance of secure operational data to keep our joint forces strong, agile, and efficient. We partner with our customers to provide expert skills in analytics, cyber IT modernization, cloud migrations, and system solutioning. On behalf of AFCEA International, it is my pleasure to introduce Lieutenant General Robert Skinner, DISA Director and Commander of the Joint Force Headquarters, Department of Defense Information Network. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Great. Excellent. I see a little bit of tiredness. So I guess some of the parties went a little bit longer than when I was around, because I know I went in early. So first off, General Lawrence, thank you. I will tell you the partnership that AFCEA has, not only with the Department of Defense, but with the companies that are represented here, as was shown, is as strong as ever. And you just have to look at what happened at TechNet Cyber and the amount of companies and participants here at Augusta, just the same. I mean, the record-breaking participation. And so that just continues to show the partnership that we have and that we continue to have and how strong it is. I'll tell you, it's always good to be in Augusta, especially I don't see any other blue uniforms out there except with my team. But I know that, as I've had discussions with General Morrison, General Barrett, General Stanton, General Brown, and everyone, I would offer the partnership between DISA and the Joint Force Headquarters and the Army is stronger than any of the other services and mission partners. Don't say that to any of the others. And you can cut that from the video, please. But it is true. It is, the partnership is there, as General Morrison mentioned yesterday, as General Stanton has mentioned. And I think it's just going to continue to get stronger. And so we'll talk about a little bit of those things today. I will tell you, I have 0 slides. So I beat General Morrison, so you can tell him that I upped him this time because I have 0 slides. The other thing I will not talk about today is the threat. I will tell you, if there is anybody in this room who doesn't understand the threat, you're in the wrong business. From the Joint Force Headquarters standpoint, we cannot just focus on one threat. We have to focus on all of them. And that's why we're not going to talk about the threat today. Plus, Dave Klink said that I couldn't do it without talking about the threat, so I won't. Okay. Talk a little bit today about the Joint Force Headquarters, and then a little bit about DISA and what we're doing in support of the Army, but also the things that we're doing from an enterprise standpoint that we can drive together. From the Joint Force Headquarters side, I want you to understand the complexity that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We are, the Department of Defense Information Networks, is the 3rd largest in the world. When you think about the number of addresses, the number of houses on the streets, et cetera, et cetera. 300 million addresses in the Department of Defense Information Networks. Who's number 1? The United States. Number 2 is the name I said I would not say. And number 3 is the Department of Defense. So think about that. And why do I bring that up? Right? We also have 15,000 plus networks within this framework and within the overall Department of Defense. 4 million plus users, number of endpoints, millions of applications. The reason I bring that up is scale. As a business and as a partner, you have got to scale. If you cannot scale, we'll be hard pressed to do business with you. The other thing is complexity. As we look at how we align our force, as we look at the technology that we need, we have got to simplify the complexity of our environment. Our force cannot be successful and cannot be as agile and maneuverable without helping us simplify that environment. And so one of the initiatives, and I'll jump to DISA real quick, one of the initiatives within DISA is what we call Workforce 2025. And that is getting at the heart of, as the department has just signed out their DoD cyber strategy, workforce strategy implementation plan, DISA is following in the next 2 weeks with our implementation plan of our strategy, which aligns to the DoD strategy. One of the core tenets of that is critical thinking. I would love to hear from industry how you are getting after this thing we call critical thinking. And how can we improve, professionally develop, our ability as a force to critically think about the problem set that we have, the technology that we bring to bear, and how we can bring those together in a marriage to get after the hard and complex problems that we have. The other thing that it's focused on is data, right? How do we make sure that every single individual in the agency understands data and how to leverage data for objective analysis and understanding of the environment so we are less subjective and we can get closer to the right answer. If we can get after the critical thinking and data, then we will be much better off and much better aligned. So that's on the DISA side. Joint Force Headquarters. 3 key things that we are working on that I think would be beneficial to everyone to hear. First one is, and it gets a little bit to the workforce, training. I would offer for the last 5, 6, 7 years, the focus from a cyber standpoint has been on the cyber mission force, right? That maneuver force on the offensive side and on the defensive side, and how do we get after making sure that they are as pristine and effective against our peer adversaries. And I would say the services have done an amazing job of helping getting them ready. Not perfect yet, but a lot of great work in there. The next phase, which is what we are on now and focused on, is our cybersecurity professionals, our CSSPs. The department just signed out readiness standards in the last, I think, 3 months. And this month is when we are going to first start reporting on CSSP readiness against those mission essential tasks. Only about, I think, 5 or 6 of them are reporting in August, more reporting in September. But this is getting after the next phase of maturation from a cyber domain standpoint in making sure our CSSPs and that are trained and able to accomplish the missions that we've assigned to them. And that's in 2 buckets. The first one is that CSSP trained and ready against those standards? The second bucket is, you as a mission owner, what have you tasked that CSSP to do? Have you tasked them to do all those critical functions? I would offer today we have not, across the board, and that's a problem. So how do we make sure that those mission owners, who at the end of the day are responsible for that terrain, has the CSSPs functioning and aligned and doing what they're supposed to do, what we've identified? That's the second phase. The third phase, which I would offer is just as important, which is a much larger force, is our DONOPS team. Network operations, your system administrators. U.S. Cyber Command, as part of their UCP mission, is responsible for the Joint Force trainer. This third phase is, how do we identify what we need this force to do, and then start aligning the readiness, start reporting on that readiness, and then get a true understanding. That's focusing on the force. That's the first thing that, from a Joint Force Secretary standpoint, that we're working through over the next year, working with General Barrett and the other service cyber components to get after this hard problem. The second thing I would offer is CCRIs, right? That 4-letter word that everyone loves. We are revamping how we do those. What are we focused on? And this is where I'm going to ask for industry's help. You got to focus from a priority standpoint. How do you control access? Okay? Making sure that those individuals and systems only have access to those things that they are authorized to have access to. What is your minimum defensive posture? Do you have that laid out? And then third, how do you handle incident response? Because it's going to happen. An incident will occur. We all know that, right? If something is impenetrable, then it's probably not usable. So how do we do incident response? And focus on those things, as an example, forward-facing devices, right? A forward-facing device, in my eyes, is more important to make sure that it's secure and protected than a device that's 5 levels down, that has multiple mitigation devices and actions in between that. Cross domains, right? Keys to I won't say keys to the kingdom because that's your Active Directory, but keys to making sure that is protected and secure and operating nominally. That's where we're focused on CSRIs. Not everything in the ocean, because at some point in time, it becomes a maintenance action and not necessarily a cybersecurity action. So industry. How do we bring all that together and show the risk that we are accepting and the risk posture? How can we leverage artificial intelligence? How can we leverage the technology that gives us commanders and the force a better understanding of that risk with all of those key principles and key actions and activities and areas? That's where we could use your help. Not just General Barrett in the DOTA, that we call it, but Joint Force Headquarters and Cyber Command from a joint perspective. That's where we could really use your help. How do we bring all that together so that we can have an objective understanding of the risk? The other area that we're focused on in CSRIs is, do you know? Right? You can't protect something you don't know about. And as you look at this terrain and making sure that you can see everything, seeing leads to understanding, which leads to the ability to protect and secure. So bringing all that together versus what we've been doing in the past is where the CSRIs is going. And we finished 3 pilots. We're working with the service cyber components over the next 2 to 3 months to train their forces in how to work this. And then we will just start jumping off. The third area from a Joint Force Headquarters standpoint is the technology. And how do we maneuver the domain to be agile against the threat? We are continually scanning ourselves, as an example. Anything that is forward-facing, that has a DoD IP address, we are scanning. And then we're working with the commanders and the directors on how do we address any vulnerability that we find. We have a pilot that's ongoing today, and actually we're working with the Army, as well with a few other DAOs, on validating that your security technology is operating nominally. We've not done that before. We've kind of relied on that particular appliance or that particular vendor. But we're leveraging what the adversary is doing in their TTPs and actually testing through, not just at the boundary, but throughout our defensive posture to make sure that it's operating nominally. Because let's take General Barrett, for example. She is relying on me as the DISA director to provide protections at the boundary. So she's assuming and expecting that to be working. What if it's not? Then that's a risk that she is assuming that she doesn't know about. And that's not good. So those are 2 of the pilots that we are working from a technology standpoint to make sure that we can maneuver and work through that. We're also looking at our internet access points. We have about 70-ish internet access points. So talking about scale and complexity, 70 of the big, I'll say bigger ones, not just DISA, but across the DODN. Bring all those under the same standard, and then evaluating and making sure that they're operating as nominally is what we're focused on. So those are 3 of the key areas that we're working on with JFH DODN. Happy to take any questions at the end. From a DISA standpoint, we talked about the workforce a little bit. 3 other key areas. First is cloud, right? JWCC, right? We have awarded 13 different task orders, cloud task orders, over $200 million worth of value over the life cycle. And I think everyone has seen Honorable Sherman's just signed out a memo that said, directing the department that if it is at the IL6 or higher level, then JWCC is your contract vehicle. We are working hand in hand with ECMA and the other service cloud offerings to see how we can work together to make sure that the department continues to get best value for their cloud capabilities and cloud hosting. A lot of work has gone on with JWCC. I think that's a success story of all that we've been able to do, and we're continuing. We got like 13 in contracting right now, 13 more, and like 45 packages toward the department is truly moving out on this. And 9 of them are associated with CJAD-C2. So there's a link with CJAD-C2 when it comes to the cloud. But we don't just stop there, right? We have infrastructure as code, we have accelerators. So those mission partners who aren't cloud experts, we have set up an environment to include what we call Vulcan, which are our DevSecOps, that enables mission partners to leverage the cloud even faster. My question to and ask of industry is application rationalization. While that doesn't really impact us from a Joint Force Headquarters standpoint and or DISA necessarily, just rehosting an application in the cloud does very little from a security standpoint and from a performance standpoint. Industry is actively engaged with the department throughout the entire department on applications and taking legacy applications and moving them to the cloud and or modernizing them. Please do it at the same time. Modernize and move. Because from a security standpoint, it makes General Barrett's job even harder just moving an application to the cloud. So I need your help with that. But that's what we're doing from a cloud standpoint. And again, we're working hand in hand with the Army on that. What people always forget from a modernization standpoint is how do you get the data from the user to the cloud, to the application, and to others, the transport piece. We have in the department over 10,000 legacy circuits called TDM, right? Oldie but goodie. We've got to get off that. Industry, I know you're having a hard time keeping the expertise to keep that working, and from a cost standpoint, it's cost prohibitive. So if you have ways of helping us accelerate that, we're all ears, because we've got to get there. The other thing that we're continuing working is, how do we make sure, General Stanton talked yesterday, right, about we got to be focused on conflict, right? Competition is important, crisis is always important, but we've got to be postured for that. How do we make sure that as a transport, that is always there and available, whether it's subsea, terrestrial, or space? How do we make sure that agnostically applications and systems and networks are able to use whatever transport is there and can change and be agile enough to work through? We're continuing working with industry, figure out how we can leverage what industry has out there, right? Co-location sites, industry fiber, industry subsea, industry space. A lot of great activity and a lot of great work to make sure that it is there during crisis and conflict. So, a lot of great work when it comes to transport. Another area is 365, SEC. But let's talk about IL5 365, for example. Anybody in this room who has, in the government, who has moved from one of the IL5 tenants to the other, knows how soul-crushing that is, trying to move your data. Well, we've been working, and in fact, we're starting a pilot with the Army here in about 2 weeks. We just finished one with the Air Force, to where we're leveraging automation and technology to be able to move from one tenant to the next. So relief is on the horizon in relation to that. For IL6, the department made the decision, as General Morrison talked yesterday, that we're going to have one tenant. DISA is in that tenant right now. All of DISA. We've moved all of DISA, and we're still kind of kicking the tires, but every individual in DISA is there. There's going to be 3 combatant commands in there by the end of this month. As General Morrison said, he wants the Army to be in there by the end of December. Because the goal is we want to sunset DEEC in March. General Morrison and I were talking yesterday, and we were laughing because we were there when DEE stood up many, many years ago, and now we're going to be together when we sunset it, finally. I don't know if that's age, but it's a natural progression. And then teams in IL6 will be coming here in September. So we will have the full suite of capabilities from a collaboration standpoint on IL6 that we have on IL5 in the September timeframe. Huge from a user experience standpoint and from a performance standpoint, because you can't forget about user experience. So a lot of great work there. And I think, unless I have anything else, Thunderdome. Recently awarded $1.9 billion ceiling of, I'll say, next generation how we do networking, next generation how we do remote access, next generation how we do security at the edge. This is already in it, to some extent, not fully. In fact, we are starting a pilot with the Army here in the next couple weeks, maybe a month, to do the Western region on the Army to see, because this is related to JRSS, but it's not a full replacement for JRSS. To be clear, when I talk Thunderdome, I'm just not talking about a contract, right? Although we have a Thunderdome contract. We look at Thunderdome as a framework that includes this contract, but also includes a few other zero trust principles to where the offerings that DISA provides satisfies about 133 of the 151 zero trust activities that the DoD strategy lays out. That is huge. It includes endpoint security and comply to connect. It includes identity, which I will tell you, it doesn't matter what you do from a networking standpoint. If you don't have identity solved and fixed and working, the rest is moot. DISA has an enterprise ICAM capability. Army has an ICAM capability. People go, well, why do you need both? There's a big reason why you need both. Because each organization, I would offer, has some uniqueness, some nuance from a data attribute standpoint. I don't want Army at the tactical level to have to go up to the enterprise and say, can you add this attribute? Can we change this attribute? I don't have the overhead to do that, nor is that effective or efficient and to be agile enough in conflict. So what do? We have a federated environment. We have enterprise attributes that it doesn't matter who you are in the department, that's an attribute that the department cares about. Keep that minimal, but effective, and then let the mission partners federate in whatever data attributes that they need at the operational and/or tactical level, let them have that. And then you just make sure that your solutions are integrated, not interoperable. They've got to be integrated. And that's how you get after the right way forward on identity. And I'd offer on a whole bunch of other different areas too. Again, a lot of work going on in Zero Trust. We could talk a lot about other things, but I think with that, those are kind of the key areas that I want to make sure that you are tracking and aware of. And again, shows a strong partnership that we have with the Army. But just as important, as we posture to be ready and agile, it's the partnerships that make this what it is. And it's the partnerships that we have with the Army and the other services, with our other mission partners, but more important, just as important, it's with the industry and academia that's really driving us forward from a success criteria standpoint. So with that, I'll open up to any questions you have. Thank you.
So your first question is, as multi-agency collaboration is not only joint but international, our mission partner environments are critical. What are we doing to influence DoD policy change for the security of those environments to be under the supervision of cyber professionals, vice combatant commanders?
Very good question. One thing I did not mention that we're looking at from I'll say this is from a DISA perspective, is right now the department has identified DISA as the IT communication service provider for agencies. Currently, for combatant commands, you have executive agents. We are working within the department to have DISA as a combat support agency be the common IT and communications and IT service provider for the combatant commands. It just makes sense, right? Why do you have a combat support agency that's focused on common IT that's not supplying that for the combatant commands? We're close to kind of making that work, but we got to do the agencies first and then combatant commands. No combatant commander goes into a crisis or conflict without allies and partners. In fact, I'd say they don't even do competition. And so the mission partner environment is all part of, I would offer, it's the next phase of how do you bring that and the combatant commands together. The Air Force right now, with their mission partner capabilities office, is responsible for the overarching mission partner environment. The DoD CIO, Air Force, and I think one others is responsible from a policy standpoint for our mission partner environment, both from a performance and capability standpoint, but also from a security standpoint. So that is the place within the department that is defining those standards. What we have not done well, I would offer, is at the speed of making sure that as a department we've defined the standards and the capabilities so that as the combatant commands are driving forward with the requirements that they need during competition, that they are in sync. I would offer within the last 30 days, as you talk about the mission partner environments, and whether it's, no matter what functional area it is, right? People, when they say mission partner environment, they go, depending on who you talk to, you get different answers. I would offer there's a multitude of mission partner environments based on the function that you're trying to achieve. So let's take fires, for example, right? Joint fires, coalition fires. Every combatant command has some need for a fires network. Every combatant command has a logistics piece of function. Every combatant command has to have collaboration with their mission partners. All that is coming together from a DoD to kind of lay out those standards here over the next, I'd say, 30, 60, 90 days as this board that the DoD CIO and Air Force are on helps drive that. I don't know if I answered your question or providing more questions for you. But from a department level, that's where the standards are set up. And there is probably more alignment today from the combatant commanders and the department to drive forward. As an example, OSD R&E is going to have a prototype for a fires network by the end of the year for all the combatant commands.
Sir, you spoke about critical thinking and data as core areas. What are your thoughts on the use of AI tools to help promote, stimulate, and analyze everything from business processes to threat assessments to mission critical data?
Yes. Next question. No. There's a lot of folks, I would say, that are wary of generative AI, wary of LLM, large language models, wary of this technology. We've got to embrace it. And I think the department is embracing it. You have to leverage those type of technologies, but you can't be 100% relying on them. I would offer you can't have the technology do the critical thinking. It can help, but we've got to make sure that we're leveraging that technology to make us better critical thinkers at the end of the day. Because there's still a humanistic portion of things that we have to make sure that we maintain, that aligns with our values as a nation and aligns with our values as a department.
Will DISA implement gate-like express network routes between service branches to better enable joint networking of tactical services?
I would have to phone a friend, from a technology standpoint. But here's what I would say. We are constantly looking at how we better leverage technology to provide more agility and better performance. Let's take our BCAPs, for example, right? The boundary cloud access points. We're re-looking at that, working with the cloud access, with the cloud service providers, and how do we get better performance and not have to have a whole bunch of security in between security they already have and the user. So I think we are actually doing what you're saying as we're working with them to have express routes and to make sure that we have not added redundant security and capabilities, which is usually the reason why our performance isn't great. It's because there's added security, added routing, added configurations that don't provide value at the end of the day.
So do you think the services are doing enough to prepare our future leaders, especially those who are not in traditional IT positions, to understand and leverage data and technology in the execution of the mission?
Well, as I'm getting the stare from General Barrett, I'd say yes. That's a loaded question. Good question, but it's a loaded one. I think we can always do better, right? Every single individual in the department has to understand the cyber environment. There's the old thing of, every person's a sensor when you talk about security forces, security police and stuff. Well, to me, every individual has to be a cyber sentinel, cyber ninja, whatever words that you want to use. Because they have to understand, because the big risk is usually at the endpoint and with the user. But just as important from the risk is the ability to have performance, the ability to have user experience, the ability to have better capabilities objectively is through those who understand the cyber domain, those who understand the technology, and those who understand the problem they're trying to solve, right? The individual who's sitting there trying to figure out how to get the right logistics throughout the Pacific theater, the better that they understand the technology, the better they can help those who those whose core is technology to bring that together and better explain what they're trying to do and then bring the right technology. So I'd say we can always do better, but I would offer in the last couple of years, there's been significant movement from a department to make sure that everybody understands the risk, understands the cyber domain, and understands the accountability that goes along with that as our commanders and directors enforce.
Sir, speaking of improving the end user experience, what lessons learned can we leverage from JRSS that will help you reconcile security initiatives such as Thunderdome with improving the user experience?
Ooh. Here's a couple of things that I'll say that go into this question. The first thing that goes into this is tech debt. The department in the last 2 years has really focused on the tech debt that we've incurred over the last decade, I'll say. And the department is putting significant resources into getting after that tech debt to understand the user experience better. As it relates to the networking piece of this, right? Whether it's the routing or whether it's the security tools. I'll say the biggest thing that we've learned is simplification of the capabilities. If you look at the stacks in JRSS, you see a whole bunch of different capabilities. I'll say cobbled together. Please don't take that as a negative necessarily, because a lot of great work was done. But it was cobbled together, and there was a lot of collisions that go on within JRSS, within all those different capabilities. And the routing, I would offer the routing continues to be a significant challenge within the department, whether it's JRSS or something else. And so one of the things that we've learned is how do we better leverage technology, better simplify it, and then don't add the uniqueness from a department standpoint that we like to do, right? We are very good, and if anybody thinks differently, I'd love to see your hands. We as a department love to add prescriptive requirements to the nth degree that then makes industry go, okay, now I got to change our architecture, and it just makes it less effective, less efficient, and less performance-wise. So as we're looking at Thunderdome, as we're looking at all these other capabilities, the simplification and then the allowing of industry to be innovative without us putting the shackles on and/or the left and right guards. There needs to be some, because the department is unique, right? The scale is significant. But we're letting the technology perform like the technology is supposed to versus adding things that inhibit that. That's what I would offer as some of the lessons learned that we've taken.
Sir, will we see a point in the future when DISA is able to approve information sharing with allied partners using a cloud rather than only on-prem solutions?
Yes.
And how soon?
I would say we are already approving cloud information sharing with our allies and partners. Is it to the level we want it to be? No. But we already have instances where we have partners that are in cloud environments with DoD and sharing that information. So it's already happening.
So we've received a couple of questions about the IL6 environment. One asking for you to just describe what it's going to look like. So we'll neck it down a little bit. Within the IL6 environment of JWCC, what's the best way for the R&D side of the Army to get involved? Will there be a separate R&D IL6 cloud environment not hosted on SIPR?
So there is and I may have to phone a friend. Ryan, get ready. So there is there's a secure environment, right? JWCC is a contract vehicle for part of that, but not necessarily all of it. Ryan, you can correct me. So there's opportunities there already to kind of, so can you repeat the question? Sorry.
I may not be able to. Within the IL6 environment of JWCC, what is the best way for the R&D side of the Army to get involved?
So I would say talk with the host and compute hybrid cloud broker office. Yes. They are the ones who can kind of walk you through, not just JWCC, right? But there's, we talk about hybrid environment, right? Not everything needs to be in a commercial cloud, right? Mission requirements should dictate where it belongs. And so there is a reason to have on-prem. Example, OCONUS, right? Because of data sovereignty and other issues, there's a need for on-prem capabilities in OCONUS. So working with the hybrid cloud office is where you would go to get more information on that.
And we have a request for you to return and give us a little more information about how the department is addressing tech debt.
Okay, so the DoD CIO has been charged by the DepSecDef to work across the mission partners, right, services, agencies, and combatant commands, and where do they have tech debt issues, as an example. The initial put has been given to DoD-CIO. They're working through, and this is really, I'd say this is focused on where do we have end-of-life, end-of-support equipment, right? The priority will always be end-of-support, right? Because you can't even patch that, right? I mean, so that is a significant security risk. Then where do we have within, and it can be your normal NIPRNet, CIPRNet, it can be within your legacy systems, it can be within functional systems, right? Whether it's NC3, logistics, it doesn't, where do we have tech debt that is end of life, end of support? Bring that all together to then have the DoD-CIO kind of validate what has been submitted and make sure we don't have duplication. And then then we'll go into the POM process, into the PBR process to be addressed by the department in some form or fashion. Last year, the department put a significant amount of money into tech debt, and then this is just going to be the next instantiation of driving that. And at the end of the day, this is all about driving legacy capabilities out so that we can improve not just the security, but also the user performance of those who are leveraging those. Hope that answered the question.
Sir, is there any initiative to realign the DISA STIGs to support innovation with equal to or better than as an acceptable security to meet the commander's intent?
I would say, great question. I would say yes, with a caveat, because I don't have all the details in front of me. Here's what I've told our team. We have got to be more agile when it comes to RMF. I know there was a discussion on RMF 2.0. We still have to be more agile, but still have to maintain a modicum of security, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what RMF is about. So we are continually evaluating, looking at what is the right standards, right information that we put out, whether it's STIGs, whether it's other, IVAs and others, across the department. But just as important, I would offer, is how do we get to the point where we have more continuous monitoring occurring so that we don't have to rely on, I would offer, the administrative portion of RMF, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about risk. And how do we better manage the risk and better leverage technology to manage that risk? So to answer the question specifically, I don't have the details of that, but if it meets the intent of what we're trying to do, then I'm all in. And you can do it faster and more agilely.
In your conversations with DoD and joint staff, who is taking the lead for establishing data governance standards, defined structures, and the implementation plan to align data across DoD from a top-down perspective?
The CDAO is responsible for the data, I'll say the data layer and the data standards. I don't know what the latest is, but I know that they are working on a high-level data standard layer as we think about even the mission partner environment, as an example. So they are the ones within the department.
Sir, can you expand on the link between those 9 JWCC tasks and CJAD-C2?
Yes. So whenever someone puts a package into the system, there's a little box that says, is this related to JAD-C2 or not? And they click yes or no. The mission partner is the one that we really have to ask of how it relates to CJAD-C2. But we have, a whole bunch of different organizations are leveraging JWCC to date, to include agencies, combatant commands, and services are leveraging it too. So that would be better answered by those mission partners of how it actually relates to CJAD-C2.
All right, so you didn't talk long enough for me to get the next question ready, so we'll go with the top question. And it's a hard one. Mr. Bang talked about abstraction of the horizontal and vertical layers of the enterprise with specs between abstractions. You have talked about how to avoid collisions of process and functions, plus concerns for scale and complexity. It seems when looking at the two speakers' positions There would be increased complexity, increased collisions with highly abstracted architecture. Your thoughts?
Okay, this is no offense to anybody from Indiana. I'm from the Indiana public school system. I have no idea what you just asked.
That was the last question anyway, so.
Thank you.
Please welcome General Lawrence back to the stage.
Well, sir, informative and entertaining as always. We really appreciate you being here. You know, yesterday General Morrison was asked a question about what's different now, why is it working, and he said alignment, and alignment of the different leaders and organizations, and DISA has always been a great partner in all of this in making it happen. And so a few decades ago when I was doing DEE in partnership with DISA, we're glad you're moving on. But anyway, again, as I started with, we are absolutely proud to work with the DISA team. TechNet Cyber this year was record-breaking. We upgunned it, brought in some great speakers, rented an additional hall to get everybody there. So again, thank you for all your support. So in lieu of a speaker's gift this morning, we're going to make a donation to the Fort Gordon Historical Museum Society on your behalf, and I think we'll put some blue in there for you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next session here is really going to be exciting. In this room, it's going to be the Senior Non-Commissioned Officer panel led by the Army Cyber Center of Excellence Command Sergeant Major Michael Sterrett at noon. So we are going to open up the buffet downstairs at 11 o'clock so that you have time to grab lunch and then be back up here by noon because you're not going to want to miss that panel as we go forward. There are a number of numerous breakout sessions in the meeting rooms across the Riverwalk hallway and at the Engagement Theater as well. And of course, all our team is down on the exhibit floor, so go see them. You can see all the morning sessions on the screen or on our event app. Thanks again to Pegasystems for sponsoring the coffee this morning. We thank you for being here this morning, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back in here at noon.